My grandmother, Elizabeth Andrews, is an African American lady who was born in Boston 1942. Growing up for her wasn't as difficult as one might think. Elizabeth attended a mixed high school called Girls High School in Roxbury. School for her was not a threat or anything outrageous. Back around the time that Elizabeth was in high school, everything was pretty normal. No racism going on or any other problems. She got along with just about everyone. Blacks, whites, Chinese, Spanish, and all the other races. After college, Elizabeth decided that she wanted to go on and become a teacher. It happened to be when she first started teaching when things changed with the environment. It was a problem for kids of different color or different races to be around each other or go to the same school and to be in the same classrooms. Elizabeth said she wasn't afraid of the changes or anything dangerous happening to her. Busing was a big joke, Elizabeth said. She also thought it was a waste of money.
Busing was a big joke. They would bus some black kids, children, to another black school. So the school was still mostly black, and the only white children that came on the bus were the ones that couldn't afford to pay for parochial school. They couldn't pay to go to the Catholic schools.
In 1974, Judge Garrity ordered busing to integrate Boston public schools. He arranged transportation of African American children to go to schools with white children and white children to go to schools with African Americans to make the learning environment equal and fair for both races. This was also arranged because African Americans had no way of transportation to white schools. The reasons why African American parents wanted their children to go to white schools was so that they would have an opportunity in life and also have their children in better and more updated learning environments, with the books and other necessities that African American students weren't given when the blacks and white schools were separated.
The decision Judge Garrity made for Boston led to these violent effects.
I think that time will bring about an understanding on the part of most people that there's no alternative.
The first school on which Elizabeth taught at was the Lewis Middle School. She didn't run into many problems because it was a school filled with mostly blacks. There were a few white kids floating around, but they didn't understand that segregation was going on or what it really was. The white kids got along with the black kids and treated Elizabeth with respect. Elizabeth stated, "I was never really afraid of how kids would interact with each other because in my class, everyone was going to get along. I was also never afraid of the way kids would treat me because I gave respect to get it." That went on for the other schools that she taught at, the King, the Taft, and Umana. It was more of the parents that cared rather than the kids. The parents never really had a problem until they knew or heard that it was a problem for colored people to be around one another and interact. Parents of the students at Lewis Middle School still never brought it to anyone's attention that they had a problem with their kids being around black kids or Elizabeth. Things became different when Elizabeth started substituting at South Boston High School, where there were a lot more segregations. My grandmother said that when she substituted at South Boston High School, she never really ran into any problems except the fact that some of the teachers didn't like her because she was black. Other than the teachers not liking her, she didn't really have any problems being around whites at all. She said students in her class got along perfectly fine and also treated her like busing was never even going on. Elizabeth said that she did notice that some of the kids' parents tried to get into their heads, but that didn't happen.
You still had just prejudiced teachers. You had teachers that were only there to get a paycheck and for the vacation. They did what they had to do to get by. I saw this and I heard this. Some teachers didn't like me because I think I was real. I was a real teacher. I was very interested in my students. I gave them home lessons, checked them out, gave them their weekly exams to see what they needed more when I gave them the tests. Called their parents, went by their houses. I really cared for my students. I started teaching at 33 years old. Went to college when I was 29 with...
The only problem Elizabeth ever ran into was when she had to go up to her daughter's school, Wayland High School. Wayland High School was a school that mostly white kids attended. You can compare this to busing because the way that black students would get to their school was arranged busing. This program was called the MECO program. The MECO program started back in 1966. This program was organized to expand the educational opportunities and to increase the diversity and also to experience the advantages of learning and working in racial diverse groups.
We got the new desks and new chairs and a couple of new books. Some places were painted.
Seeing that incident occurred in 1980, it shows that as much as people want desegregation to end, there will be some people everywhere that will show their negativity towards people who are different.